Welcome, everyone. We will be looking at the final component in not for profit organization performance measurement and management, that is targets, assigning targets to public sector or not for profit organizations. What we have to understand here, I've already talked about it, is that once you come up with, especially with the VFM approach under each of the E's, once you come up with KPIs after recording that information for several years, you can actually look at the performance and see and establish targets. Now, a performance targets it generally represents the level of performance that the organization aims to achieve for a particular activity. Such targets should be consistent with the SMART criteria. So you actually see similarities between when you set targets. You see similarities between the behavior that is expected for targets in the for-profit sector as well as the not-for-profit sector. SMART. They should be smart. They should be within controllable scope, and there shouldn't be too many targets. There should be a few achievable, attainable, practical targets. Now, to look at them critically, there are good things and bad things, just as we saw with the for profit sector. As far as the positive things are concerned, it can improve efficiency and effectiveness of public expenditure. It can reduce overall expenditure. It can increase accountability and transparency and the responsiveness to stakeholder needs. And it can also act as a catalyst of motivation for managers and staff, especially if there are rewards that are being aligned to the achievement of those targets set. Because even for not for profits, the targets are important. Reaching as many consumers or beneficiaries is important, and that can be boosted by rewarding systems that are well designed. However, there are a few issues which we already saw, which are very similar to what we saw with the for-profit sector as well. One is central control, is that most targets are set centrally by the government or maybe the main donor, and that itself may be too top down, right? And they may not really understand the ground level picture, and those targets may be unrealistic or unacceptable in some way or form. So that disconnect might be there. The difficulty levels of the targets may be too high or too difficult, all or nothing. So there is this achievement perception that, let's say you have a target of 100, but you only hit 80. So when you don't hit the target, you're completely disregarded. It's a nothing situation. So you either hit 100 and you get recognized for your work, or if you miss even by one, if you hit 99, still it's the same, right? It's the same as 80 and 20 and 30 and 15. So that kind of effect can happen with certain. Of course, I know that a lot of not-for-profits are addressing this issue, but it used to be a common case. It used to be a common situation with many not-for-profits, especially when it comes to a collection of donations. There will be a target of collection of donations, and you'll have like 500 people going door to door asking for money, and only those who hit the target are generally recognized. This is something that we've experienced with certain organizations, NGOs that are operating in our country as well. And the other issue is that there can be too many targets. There's just too many. We already understood that other than being smart, those targets, they should be controllable. There should be few attainable, practical ones, but few high priority, few targets. So if you have too many targets, then it's all over the place. People cannot really focus. So on that note, we actually okay. In addition to that, targets may always not be appropriate. So relevancy of the targets may be weak. There may be high costs associated with setting those targets and measuring the performance. Again, a CBA analysis should be done to see whether the cost of setting targets and measuring and tracking performance is greater than the benefit that you're hoping to gain. If so, this might not be worthwhile pursuing. Lack of the ownership of targets, because controllability. Again, it's about if you don't really own that target, if you don't own the functions, own the activities, and own the outcomes and your effort, then being measured upon that and being rewarded or penalized upon that, it's unfair. Gaming can happen. There may be people tendency for people to deliberately adjust and doctor and manipulate numbers just to look good. And conflict, there could be conflicts between targets. For example, here, reduction in the number of children on the child protection register, there could be a coincidence, or it could coincide with the increase in child abuse cases, because the number of cases that get reported may be less because abuse is high, and the people who do abuse actually have control of the children, that they don't have the opportunity to report the cases. So just because the number of cases that are reported goes down, it doesn't necessarily mean that child abusers are less. So there are concerns like that, conflicts between or weak correlations between and the confusion between causality and correlation that we looked at earlier with targets in the for-profit sector. So all of these you have to keep in mind when you're signing targets, if you're assigning targets for a not-for-profit organization. On that note, we arrive at the ending and completion of the chapter number 10. It's a fairly straightforward chapter. The dynamics, the environment around how not-for-profits operate are quite different, but there are similarities that you can draw. There are things that you can learn from the for-profit that you can apply to a not-for-profit. But end of the day, you keep it focused in terms of trying to help the beneficiaries of the not-for-profit organization. On that note, thank you and good luck.